Hello and welcome to the Pintcast. I'm joined today. Joined. I'm joined today by Elliot Smith. You can follow him at Yankee Gunner. It's a pleasure to have you on, Elliot.
It is a pleasure to have me on with you.
That it is indeed.
Yeah.
You can find this fine fellow also on the Arsenal Vision. Am I mispronouncing everything today?
Do you want to do a quick tongue transplant and start over?
I might need that. Today. You can find him hosting the Arsenal Vision podcast shortly thereafter, after every match. They're killing it. Check it out, listen, subscribe on iTunes. We are going to get into some Champions League action. That's where we're going to start. Elliot, the match today was full of drama. Give me your thoughts.
Well, as we discussed off mic, but I think it belongs on mic, any sad Ronaldo is a good Ronaldo. Yes. So we got treated to sad Ronaldo, which I think is ultimately what the world wants. I personally didn't want another Classico. I think we've had enough of them. They tend to be niggly and tactical and boring with limited exception. Lots of fouls, lots of complaining to the ref. I'm excited to see a new matchup, so I'm happy to see Juventus go through. I thought Bale did his absolute utmost to get the gears moving for his transfer to United this summer by being utter crap for 90 minutes. You know, I saw people tweeting and respected journalist stuff saying, well, at least he's putting himself out there, which is more than, you know, other players on the team are doing. But like when nothing you're doing is being executed effectively, I've never understood the theory that like being involved, but being involved poorly means that you somehow deserve to be more highly rated. I agree that a lot of Madrid players went missing, but you know, Bale taking speculative 20-yard shots, I don't think means you pin a medal to his chest. Ultimately, I thought Juve had a good game plan. They stuck to it. But I think this is more about Madrid just not firing on all cylinders than it necessarily is about the sensational performance of Juve. I don't know that they did anything brilliantly. And actually, late in the game, they spurned a lot of chances to put it away, which could have come back to haunt them. But ultimately, it looks to me like Madrid missed Modric, which you never would have guessed that someone like Luka Modric could be so important to that side. But their build-up through midfield just didn't seem to work. In general, I'm just happy to see a new Champions League final, thrilled to see an upset Cristiano Ronaldo, and hope that the team totally implodes from there.
Yeah, we can only hope. You know, we're still, like you said, I mean, Gareth Bale had a shocker. You know, he had plenty of chances to put a few away. A couple, I thought the header at that one header pretty late in the game was, you know, everything would have been forgiven if he had buried that.
And he should have. I mean, that's a perfect example. I mean, I know he won them the Decima, so it's kind of petty to say like big players perform in big spots, but that's a big moment, and I don't think.
But that's what spared him last year. Like, the way he's going to get crucified now is what would have happened last season if he had not scored the winner in the Decima. Like his only route to salvation was to either win the league or to score the goal that got them to the Champions League again.
I will say this for Bale. I have a lot of sympathy with the fact that, like, first of all, he's trying to play with that hair, you know, with the headband on, and I don't know how easy that could be. But the other sympathy I have for him is that I can't imagine being a supremely talented player on a team full of stars where the one iconic player on the team just openly seems to show disdain for your very existence every time you're involved. So Bale, every time he kicks the ball, is not only carrying the weight of needing to perform like any other professional footballer, but the weight of not wanting to disappoint Ronaldo and knowing that if he doesn't kick the ball straight into the upper 90, you know, every time he hits it, he's going to get scowls from Ronaldo and jeers from the crowd. And I just don't see how you perform under that kind of degree of pressure and expectation. So, well, I don't think he played well. I think he is a very, very talented player who is basically being railroaded out of that club because of the scorn poured on him by their star player.
And he's going to be the scapegoat in this situation. You know, it's not going to be like, look,
Can it just be the hilarity of Iker Casillas' throw-in? Like, if there's one moment I want to remember from a Real Madrid season, it's Iker Casillas' foul throw. Like, that was fantastic.
Yeah, that was pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
But do you think this is just kind of deflecting the attention? Because look, in Madrid, they're always looking for a scapegoat, so there always has to be a fall guy. It looks like Ancelotti's out. right?
I don't know. I mean, I don't, he delivered the Decima, so like I think he's got enough goodwill and enough respect that like
Capello won the league and got fired that same season.
Well, he won the league. Yeah, I get that. I mean, he didn't deliver the Champions League. I guess my question to you is, if you're going to fire a manager with the cachet and the pedigree of Ancelotti, like, who do you have to go to next? I mean, Klopp is the kind of guy that you fire a manager for, but I don't know that Real Madrid is the kind of place that Jurgen Klopp would necessarily choose to wind up. And I don't know if he wants to operate the way a Real Madrid operates, with Florentino Perez pulling the strings and Klopp sort of having to fall in line. I mean, Ancelotti has seemed kind of happy to let the people above him run the club while he just is the first team coach, essentially. I guess maybe there's a manager out there for Madrid that they'd rather have than Ancelotti, but I'm not sure who it is. And I certainly don't think they would be any better by making that move.
And are they available?
Do you have a name in mind? I mean, they're not going to go for Pep, obviously, for obvious reasons. So, like, when you take Pep out of the equation, and Guardiola would be the obvious name, but I don't think he's a fit for that situation. There's not a long list of trendy managers right now that have the gravitas to take the reins of a pack of coddled superstars like that.
Yeah, trendy, no. There's not the new flavor of the month that looks like the guy that's going to go there. I mean, you look at the biggest clubs, like anything going to be leaving or moving. I mean,
wouldn't it be hilarious if they I tried to get Max Allegri?
Yeah. Allegri, yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah. Or fine, Antonio Conte,
Conte, sorry, that's what I mean. Sorry.
That's the only other one that I was thinking in terms of who's a flavor of the month. But, it was interesting. I was discussing with Andrew from Arsblog last week about, Conte become the consensus, like the best Italian manager after he won, 3 Scudetto in a row. But he never did shit in Europe. Like those teams fell miserably short in the Champions League. And now Max Allegri, of all people, is actually getting the job done. So
yeah, I mean, Allegri's not going anywhere, obviously. And I mean, the only interesting thing, I think, the Juve celebrations, I'm not saying they weren't warranted. They just booked a place in the Champions League final, but like, they're not going to win the Champions League final. And the celebration to me almost
it's a one-off.
They can't. And the celebration to me almost they can't.
Look at the fucking players they have. They can't.
It won't be close.
I'm not saying Barcelona's not going to kick their ass.
Barcelona's going to win by 2 clear goals or more.
Okay, 2 clear goals, but let's not say
actually. Why do you have to say clear after that? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
yeah, I don't.
They're going to win by 2 goals. I mean, what are they going to be? Unclear goals?
2 unclear.
They will win by 1 clear goal and one unclear
it'll be 2
goal.
goals that are like the Ospina goal at the weekend.
Yeah, right. One where the ball's kind of over the line, but you can't really tell. They'll win by 2 of them. Yeah, I just think that front 3 can't be stopped right now, and. I could see Juventus scoring on the counterattack, but ultimately, like, I don't know how you stop Messi, Neymar, and Suarez.
Well, you don't. You're gonna have to score goals against them. It's gonna be the only way that Juve win is gonna be by scoring 2 to 3 goals.
And I don't know that they have the steal in midfield. I mean, the thing that's interesting is, like, I don't know that Pogba is the enforcer that people make him out to be. I think he's more of a possession type.
Who makes him out to be an enforcer?
All right. Well, I mean, I think people think of him as this, like, towering, dominant, holding midfielder. That's not what he is at all. And then Pirlo obviously is, a conductor. He's not someone who is going to break up attacks. And I just wonder if there's enough metal in midfield for Juventus when Iniesta or Rakitic are carrying the ball forward and they've got Messi, Neymar, and Suarez running up the pitch. Like, who's going to break up that attack? I think
Marquisio and Vidal are the ones that.
Yeah, and you could see a situation where maybe Juventus slow down Barcelona in possession a little bit, but I think it'd be interesting. Like, you could see Barca getting goals off things like Juventus corners or Juventus set pieces where maybe they commit resources into the attack and they don't have the pace or the metal to slow down that counter, because that's the thing that really strikes you about Barcelona right now is it's not what we traditionally associate with them because we think tiki-taka, but they're so devastating on the counterattack.
Yeah. We kind of got ahead of ourselves talking about the finals. We hadn't spoken about the Barcelona
Sorry.
Bayern match. No, but that's okay. But I mean, the only thing I want to kind of say on that, it's interesting to see. It was interesting to see Bayern put to the sword like this. There's an interesting storyline. People were saying there's some stuff after the match that the Germans earned respect by coming back and scoring a few goals. Well, it's like, look, did Arsenal earn respect by scoring 2 goals late against Bayern? Like, not really. A couple of years back when we did it out there.
I mean, some people would say that was the launch pad to our top 4 finish that year.
Sure. So, I mean, we know all about moral victories at Arsenal, right?
I'll tell you, those goals were big for Pep Guardiola and no one else.
Right.
Yes.
But the thing is that, they didn't score those fucking goals until they were down by 5. They needed 5 goals. They got the first goal, which was the right step, but then after the next 2 went in, they needed 5 fucking goals. The contest was over. So then everything after that is garbage.
And Barcelona had started making substitutions. To me...
Yeah, they wouldn't... if there was any bit of a contest left, fucking Suarez would not have come off at halftime.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, to me, that was not a close contest. And what Bayern did in the second leg, I don't think earned them any respect. Now, to be fair, if they had their shooting boots on, they could have made that more interesting early. Because they could have had 5 goals in the first half. I mean, the one thing you saw is that Barcelona, maybe just they weren't that focused because they thought it was in the bag, but you can create good quality chances against them. I would have loved to have seen that tie with Robben and Ribéry there.
Sure,
but ultimately, Robben and Ribéry being there might have made that finish 5-5. But Robben and Ribéry being there wouldn't have done anything to keep, in my opinion, to keep Barca from scoring the goals they did. And if anything, may have resulted in them scoring more if they had a more attacking lineup out there. So Barcelona, the best team in Europe right now. I'm glad they got through. I think we're getting, in my opinion, the most desirable final we could have gotten based on the Final Four. Just because I know there are people out there that would have loved to have seen a Clasico final, but we've seen those games, and too often they're about everything but the football.
Yeah, and that was something that we were talking about last week, just in terms of we didn't see that. I mean, just when you see these kind of teams of such a high caliber play against each other, you want it to be about the football, not the bullshit.
Yep.
And I think in particular, like you look at how tightly contested the Barcelona Bayern match was in the first leg. We were talking about it, that there wasn't the contentiousness so much. There wasn't all the bullshit you see in these Clásicos that we've become accustomed to, especially in the past 4 or 5 seasons. And that makes a big difference in terms of what we saw. I mean, really, I think, people have talked about how, sometimes the quarterfinal stage is the best or one thing or another. In terms of the quality that we saw and the quality of the match, I mean, I still think that even though it ended up being a blowout at the end of the score, I mean, I think the match that we saw between Barcelona and Bayern in the first leg was such a match played at such a high caliber that it was a joy to behold in that sense. And the fact that it was just about the football, it wasn't really about all the little bullshit. I
agree. I mean, I actually have enjoyed the semifinals of the Champions League, which hasn't always been the case. And I think that the level of talent out there was allowed to show at least a little bit, whereas in some of these semifinals that we've seen in seasons past, it's kind of been a stale, drab affair of teams just playing it safe. I enjoyed the semifinals, all 4 legs over the 2 ties. And I think Juventus deserve obviously a lot of credit. My issue is just that I'm not really sure how much is down to Juventus, what Juventus did, and how much of it is down to what Real Madrid didn't do. They looked very content with themselves after they scored the opening goal in the second leg. And I just wonder if they felt they had done it and that Juve couldn't hurt them. And I don't know what they were thinking, but ultimately I don't think that Juventus are as good as Real Madrid, but I think that something is wrong with Real Madrid right now.
I think they're a better team than Real Madrid in terms of cohesive.
Just the composition of the side.
Yeah.
And that may be it. And that may be why missing a Modric is so important, because he adds something that side is needing. I'll tell you this much. Going into the semifinal, Isco was a player that I really thought would be great for Arsenal, and he may still be great for Arsenal, but he really was exposed as a bit of a liability for Madrid over both legs, and especially in the second leg, I thought.
Yeah. So now, I mean, to what you were saying, though, I think we're getting a final that is it's very worthy of a final, in the sense that, like, you're getting the teams that are, about to be crowned, either already crowned or about to be crowned champions of their domestic leagues. The biggest powers between countries. I mean, we already had, the only thing that would have been bigger is what we got in the semifinal, which was Bayern Munich against Barcelona. Those are the two biggest powers from two different countries that could have faced each other.
Yeah, and truthfully, without Robin and Ribéry, I'm not sure that you want to see Bayern in the final. I mean, Iron Robin is, if it's possible, underrated. And I think he is for Bayern what Messi is for Barca. I'm not saying he's as good as Messi, but I'm saying what he gives to Bayern is as important as what Messi gives to Barca.
Well, yeah. I mean, these players, you have to think that both of these guys have been in that rarefied air of being the third candidate for the Ballon d'Or on the short list.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that says a lot, because basically that means you're the best player outside of these two gods.
Yeah, I mean, they should carve out. I mean, honestly, Messi is the best player in the world and Ronaldo's not close. But they should carve out an award for the non-Messi Ronaldo player of the year. It really, It's gotten to that point. I will say that watching Ronaldo this season, and particularly over the last few months, makes me wonder if we are starting to see the very beginnings of a player who is – now, look, at 70% of his best, Ronaldo is still the second best player by some distance. But I do think that maybe Ronaldo is beginning whatever that downward process is, from being near Messi level to now starting to drop back to just really awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, because he's got a couple of years on Messi, and he also has the issue. I mean, he has a couple injuries that are things that don't tend to go away.
Well, he's what? He's 30, 31?
He's 30. He's 30. He's got like tendinitis in the kneecaps and stuff like, like.
Well, and here's what I noticed,
like that, but those don't disappear.
I've watched Real quite a bit, actually, over the last few weeks, just because I watch a lot of football. But it's not that about the goals. I know he's maybe not been scoring goals with that absolute regularity, and he's getting a lot of penalties.
He's got like 55 this season.
Well, no, but he went through a period of 5 games where he didn't score, something like that, which for him is unthinkable.
These are the only players where we can be like, oh my God, what?
Well, remember, we're grading on a curve when we talk about Messi or Ronaldo, but it's not that. His influence on games is waning. I mean, if you take out the penalty,
what did you do?
He didn't stamp his authority on either of these legs. I mean, and I know you can't take away the goal, but it is still a penalty. I mean, there are a lot of players in world football who can score from the penalty spot who aren't considered the best player in the world. Like, I just think his influence on games is starting to wane a little bit. We don't see him running at defenders with the ball at his feet as much. I don't think his set piece delivery, his dead ball delivery hasn't been as good this season. And in general, I just think that he is not as influential in open play as we've seen when he was at the height of his powers.
Yeah, I'd say there's certainly a chance, and it's coming. It's coming pretty soon. I think there was a chance that we could have. There was a little bit of doubt. I think that started to creep into people's minds last season after Messi had his first, injury-plagued season where he missed substantial time, and then he was kind of off form, and you just kind of, they don't win the league, they don't win the Champions League, and then the questions start coming up. And then, same as Ronaldo, and I think he's going to be afforded the same chance, and we'll see if he bounces back. I mean, it's really hard to say when a player's got 55 goals and he's on starting to slip, but like it's true. It's going to happen soon, and the clock is ticking for him a little more than Messi, and we know he has an injury that's something that could be debilitating. It could be long-standing, it could be something that he has to deal with from here on out. And those things start to slow you down. There's no doubt about it. Like those begin to affect you, and you start losing the pace. And we've seen what happens to certain players. I mean, obviously, like you said, he's still going to be one of the best players in the world. He'll probably still be the second best for a long time. But when you lose those little aspects of the game, it looks like what is it? Sorry, I got distracted. Messi, or was it Ronaldo's? I totally fucking lost my train of thought. What was I saying there?
I don't know. I heard the beep of the phone too, and I lost it also.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the interesting things to come away from the Juve Madrid matchup, though, is, when you look at Madrid and the money they spent on that front line of Benzema, Bale, and Ronaldo, and James, you can throw in there, and all the money they spent, that they were beaten by goals in both legs from a Real Madrid academy player who they never found room for. And it is really interesting seeing that happen. Juve spent 15 or 16 million on Morata, who was a Real Madrid academy player, and he's going to the Champions League final after scoring crucial goals in both legs, and Madrid aren't going.
It's true.
It just makes you wonder.
They still have their buyback clause, though.
Well, it's the one thing that I think Barcelona has over Real Madrid is that they do have La Masia and they do bring players through. And I'm not saying that they don't go out and spend a ton of money. They absolutely do, and you see that throughout their squad. But Madrid are going to have to, I think, find ways to get players. And, look, they don't have to do anything because they can spend $70 million on a player every single summer. But I think it's got to hurt a little bit seeing a player from their academy beat them in a Champions League semifinal with all the money they've spent in those positions.
Yeah, they don't have much support from the youth. Like you said, Morata has a buyback clause. We'll see if they actually use that. It wouldn't be that surprising, would it, if that happened and say?
I think he's really good, and it's funny. Yeah. I have to admit, we were linked with him for a hot minute, and I remember I was texting with Tim Arstemaus, and we were both like, yeah, youth player, another project. Is this what we need? Is this what's going to take us to the next level? Because obviously we were sick of Project Youth at that point, but I got to admit, he looks really like the real thing. It seems silly to say after he just won a Champions League semifinal. Obviously he's the real thing, but that to me is one of the interesting sort of side stories of that tie.
Yeah, Arsblog was saying last week that part of the reason why that deal didn't happen was Real Madrid's insistence on a buyback clause. Yeah. And the thing is that the one thing that Juve have not had is the money. It's been really impressive how they've been able to get all this money or get all these players to come to them on a free. They've picked up more talent than anybody in recent years through Bosman's. And so even getting stuff like, you're getting a cut rate deal for Tevez. He's only got 1 year left on his contract. And this similar type of thing where you got Morata, who's highly rated. They would have paid more for him, but in order to get that lower price tag of being in the low teens or whatever it was, there's a buyback clause included.
And I think if you're Juventus, you take that risk because you figure there's always going to be some shiny 70 million pound player who, they're going to go after before they go after Morata. And if he does turn into that shiny 70 million pound player, then you probably got some joy out of that before they bought him back.
Certainly.
Buyback clauses are tricky because I think you never want to have your plans disrupted that easily by another club. At the same time, if you're not in a position to spend 50, 60, 70 million on a player, they're a great way to get top talent affordably, and Juve have leveraged that. Pogba's another example of a player that they stole, and they have a gem.
They certainly do, and they're going to be turning a tidy profit on him.
So
probably this summer.
Yeah, it's a little worrying because you watch that tie and you think Bale to Madrid, and Bale to United, and Pogba to Chelsea, and it could just get real ugly.
Whoa, Pogba to Chelsea.
I read that. I read that rumor.
Get out of here.
Fine,
out in the air.
Pogba to City.
Okay, well that makes more sense.
Great.
We're gonna have to
awesome. Fantastic.
I hate them less than Chelsea.
I've got Chelsea fans that think they're going to get. I've got Chelsea fans tied up in my basement. But other than those Chelsea fans,
gasoline.
Yeah, who think they're going to get Bale? It's really interesting too because I think it's kind of over to you, England, now, because all the TV money in the world is now in the Premier League. It's the best league in the world, and its top teams are just getting pasted by the rest of the world, by the rest of Europe right now. So I think there's a burden on the Premier League top sides right now to get better, not just so they can win their own domestic title, but I think the Premier League, to justify the money it commands and its cachet and its place in world football, needs to start putting its top teams back in the final rounds of the Champions League again.
Yeah, and we're going to have to see that market improvement. I mean, obviously, we'd like Arsenal to be part of that.
Well, it doesn't get any easier because we're not going to have the pot one, we're not going to have
pot two now, right?
Yeah, we're not going to have the benefit of pot one, and I know we've drawn some tricky groups and some easy groups, to be fair, but in pot two, we're probably going to have a Barca or a Juve or a PSG, in our group with us next season.
Yeah, very, very likely.
Yeah,
and that'll make won't make it any easier to get out of that first get out of that secondary spot, getting out of a group. But who knows? Maybe we'll turn it around. Maybe
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Well, I think that's about enough on the Champions League. As exciting as it was, it's something to look forward to at the end of the month, and I'm looking forward to this battle between these continental giants. But let's turn our attention to the mighty. Should we call them mighty right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, the mighty Arsenal.
Yeah.
The mighty.
No, we lost at home to Swansea.
Arsenal.
But other than that,
we're lost twice to Swansea in one season.
Awesome.
Is that match a cause for concern, or is it just a bad day at the office?
No, I think it was a bad day at the office, and I think in particular it was just a bad day in the final third of the office. I mean,
Agreed.
The Gomez goal was a little bit fluky. It wasn't the naive,
fluky yet predictable.
Yeah, it was fluky yet predictable, but it wasn't the usual way we did. Like, we weren't chasing a goal late, leaving ourselves totally exposed, get caught on the counter. Like, we had defenders back. Bellerin maybe could have done better to prevent the cross. Monreal could have done better to block out Gomez. Ospina absolutely should have done better on the shot. Like, all in all, there had to be three pretty spectacularly poor pieces of play to allow that goal to happen, and mistakes are going to be made from time to time. I think my concern in that game is not the goal we conceded. It's the goals we didn't score. And we had a lot of possession, and for the first half, it was mostly sterile domination, but in the second half, I thought we genuinely turned the screw. And for me, the only worry is I have been concerned for a while now that we're short of the goals we need to be a title contender. We're short of the player who is a match winner. I mean, I know Alexis on his day can be. I think we need another frontline player who's a proven goal scorer, and I don't know that Ramsey on the right is the long-term solution. So for me, the issue against Swansea was just, we know that teams every season are going to come and sit deep. Here's one thing, Joaquin, though, the reason I don't think you can totally overreact to the Swansea game, people act like, oh, it's too easy. You sit deep and we can't break you down, and then you can hit us, and that's too easy, and these weaker teams can do that to us. No one beats the bottom half of the league with the regularity that we do. No one. We whip the bottom 10 teams in the league. So I'm not super concerned about teams that sit deep and defend against us, because the results show we beat those teams. We need to beat the teams in the top half. And I realize that Swansea are technically in the top half. But what I'm saying is that for me, I think the question is, do we have enough match winners? Do we have people that in the big moment can step up and score? And so the question is the player we're missing someone who's going to play on the right side of the front three? Or is the player we're missing an upgrade on Olivier Giroud? And I think that's a fair and open question. But I think one of those two things has to be addressed.
And it's interesting because obviously in terms of the number of goals, we do have a player who has scored enough goals for us from the right side in Theo Walcott. It doesn't look like
not
he
this
is
season.
No, not this season.
No.
But also he's hardly played to create it, right? But I mean, a couple seasons ago, he was, he had 2 seasons in a row of scoring over 20 goals?
Yeah, I mean, to me, proposing Walcott is almost like proposing Podolski. Like, whether you believe in him or you don't believe in him, the manager clearly doesn't. So
no, exactly. So we have to look going forward, and it looks like, and I think rightfully so. Look, if you asked me who I wanted moving forward in terms of internal solutions on the right-hand side, I'd say Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain.
I totally agree.
He's already made one. He's the guy who's supposed to make the step. I mean, really for him, the hindrance has been these couple injuries that he's had. You know, the muscle injuries this season, the knee injury at the beginning of last season, and we just kind of need him to find that run of form and run of fitness, you know, so that he can be that guy for us. Because I think he's a hell of a footballer. I think he's the most talented English footballer we have at the club.
He's yet to prove that he can produce the end product regularly, and that's the worry, you know. Right,
but you know, you look at the age and you take what we've taken into account, what we've seen with so many of these players. Like, he's got a hell of a shot on him as well. You know, he can absolutely cunt a ball. He's got that kind of power, and he's got the technique. And so, you know, he is an exciting guy. I mean, I feel like he has more successful take-ons in terms of dribbles than Alexis. You know, like he's a dynamic player.
It sounds silly, but if we hadn't conceded that stupid goal to Monaco at the very end of the first leg, which he was kind of partly to blame for,
yes, he's the one who lost it.
He would have scored one of our most important goals of the season, the lone goal we got at home against Monaco. And that was an example of a beautiful shot from outside the box, struck with power. I mean, the thing, Oxlade-Chamberlain also has that versatility. I just wonder if he'll ever be prolific. I think he's an exceptionally skillful player, but I don't know if he is a 20-goal-a-season player. And if you're going to play Giroud at center forward, and he's going to be your first choice center forward, I think you need Alexis and one more 15 to 20-goal player on the side. Now, maybe that's greedy, but the other problem is I don't think Giroud is terrible at all whatsoever. I think he's shown that he's not terrible. I also don't think he's necessarily the player that we saw February, March, where he was just banging them in every single game. I think that was a purple patch. I think the real expectation of Giroud is somewhere between, you know, his poor form when people were really on his back and the purple patch he was in this winter. I don't think
he's not quite a 30-goal season striker. But
I don't think he's quite a 20-goal season
striker. He has been. How many goals does he have this season after missing months out injured?
Was he got 22, 19?
Right. Missing 3 months.
No, I get that, but I'm talking about what I think he is on a season in, season out basis. He can't beat a man, he can't turn a man, he can't get behind a back four that play a high line. He has no pace. So, like, to me, I just think we either need a guy on the right who will score a lot of goals too, or a different center forward. This isn't really even about Giroud for me.
We need another center forward. Look at the teams that we're trying. Look, the teams that we want to be. No, well, Danny Welbeck's not that kind of goal scorer. Right?
Do we have any other striker at the club besides Giroud right now? Not really. I mean,
well, look, Welbeck is not good enough to be our second striker if we intend on winning a title.
See, I think Welbeck is better than Giroud at everything except finishing. Let me put it this way. Let me ask you this. Let's say, hypothetically, Danny Welbeck and Olivier Giroud could finish with the same regularity. They had the same conversion rate. Okay, just imagine that world for a minute.
Okay.
Whose skill set would you rather have on the pitch any given game? Welbeck's dynamic work rate, pace, dribbling, explosive burst, or Giroud's soft touch around the box and hold-up play?
I think is a little bit of a toss-up. I mean, look, honestly, the speed, the pace and power, you know, the pace that Danny brings, you know, is a huge aspect. And that's something we need to be able to get behind a defense. But, I mean, I don't think it's as easy as saying, like, when you throw these fucking hypotheticals where it's like, well, if he had this finishing, like, he doesn't have it.
Well, no, I get that, but I'm saying, realize something. Before this season, Giroud's conversion rate was abysmal. The biggest criticism about Giroud is
he still scored over 20 goals in the season, though.
But he didn't finish chances. Like if I give you
But look,
Joaquin, if I give you 1,000 chances, if I give you 1,000 good goal scoring chances in a season, and you score 70 goals, you've had a terrible season.
Sure.
Okay, you have. Like, sure. And by the way, again, I'm not trying to bang on.
Was that his rate?
Yeah, it was 70 out of 1,000. No, I'm kidding. But I mean, he did.
No, but I mean, like, you give me that number. I mean,
okay. I mean, I'll have to look it up. I don't have it in front of me. But he had a below average conversion rate prior to this season.
Sure. But I mean, look, if we look at things that are trends, things that we can see and follow,
he's improving.
Right. He's improved every one of his professional years. So I think he's good enough to be a striker at Arsenal. But the point that I'm making is that you know, the teams that are contending for the titles that we're you know, hoping to achieve and win, have a striking core that has more depth. So it's not about the quality of Giroud, it's having another guy of at least the same quality.
I would say this. It depends on whether you think Alexis is our main scoring threat or whether you think our striker should be. Because I would say it this way. Chelsea are going to win the title this season. Chelsea have won the title this season off the brilliant season Costa had when he was fit. City won the title off Aguero. Man United won the title off Robin van Persie. Arsenal won titles. Chelsea won titles off Drogba. Arsenal won titles off Henry. Olivier Giroud, even in his best form, is not Henry. He's not Drogba. He's not Aguero.
Agreed.
He's not Van Persie. When Van Persie was in that form. And I don't think he's Costa either. So, I mean, again, it goes back to Thierry Henry's question. Like, you can think Giroud is good, which I've come around to believing. I think he is very good, and still think we do not have a match winner in a big game. I mean, I look at the Chelsea game. They find him very easy to stop. Now, to be fair, they're an excellent defense. They find a lot of people very easy to stop. But I think for certain top defenses, Giroud does not pose a tough enough challenge. You know, and maybe I'm just biased. I like pace. I think every defender, even the best defenders in the world, struggle with pace.
Sure.
Giroud's physicality is going to work against some teams, but there are teams that will not struggle with that.
Indeed. So then what's the solution? Bringing in someone who can operate, like you said, you know, either through the middle as well, or on the right side. We got to start talking about what are realistic targets,
a proven scorer to play wide right. You know, so maybe it's Marco Reus. I don't know. Can he play on the right? I mean,
that's our dream choice, right?
Yeah, the dream choice is Reus. You know, and maybe you can move Alexis around then a little bit. And by the way, I'm happy to have Giroud play in that lineup because I think with Ramsey running from deep in midfield and Reus and Alexis on the wings, Giroud's hold-up play and his distribution become as big an asset as his goal scoring. So then I think he becomes a very important player. Well, it's true. I mean,
yeah, look, I agree, but it's just
because if your center forward is primarily a fulcrum around which the attack pivots, then you have to have goals around your center forward. Sure. And right now, Giroud is the pivot for our attack, which is fine. He's that pivot point, that focal point around which everything operates. But then I think you need one more goal scorer inside. If you see your striker as having the main obligation of scoring the goals for your team, I know he's done it for a couple of months this season. I still don't know if I trust him to do it regularly. And in that scenario, where your striker wins you leagues and wins you Champions Leagues and wins you the big cup competitions and does it by scoring 30 goals a season, then that's not Giroud to me. And then we do have a real question of who that player is. And
well, look,
I don't know.
I think what we can agree upon is that you do need one more bot. You need another. We need another attacking weapon. There has to be another. I mean,
yes, we're on the same page.
The complement of attackers on the teams that we're trying to compete with. You know, there's just more depth and more players. You know,
I mean, you could say we have Sanchez, but Chelsea has Hazard and Costa.
Yeah, you know, and Willian, and I mean, it was you said
Oscar and Cesc and all that, right? Yes. I mean, I think what I'm saying is that, and there is another alternative here. There's another point. This was Alexis's first season.
Sure.
He may go from 24, 25, 26 goals to 33, 34, 35 goals. And then if Giroud can get 20, and if we do have someone on the right next season who's more naturally suited there, maybe Welbeck improves or it's Oxlade-Chamberlain who stays fit, who can get 12 or 15, now, as far as I'm concerned, you have plenty. Because Ramsey, wherever you play him, will pop up with some. I don't know if Cazorla will still be here. I would love to see Ozil score a few more, but you know, with the chances he creates, that's almost being greedy. It's not. You know what this is, Joaquin? It's not necessarily a criticism of Giroud. It's saying that I'm not convinced we have enough goals in the forward line right now, and maybe that's in part because I just don't believe that Ramsey playing on the right is a long-term solution there.
Well, I don't think it is either. I mean, it's a clear case.
But we don't know what is
seen in the past. Well, the thing is that we've seen. We don't know what Santi Cazorla's future is with us just quite yet.
Do you think he's going to stay or do you think he's going to go?
I would do everything I could to try to convince him to stay one more season.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. But I could see him going.
I don't know. Yeah, we could all certainly see it because it's just in terms of age and the evolution of the squad and like, him playing in the 8 role, which is it's Ramsey's position. Moving forward, you kind of see that he's going to be the next one to make way. And so whether that's this next year or one more year, I mean, I think what you do is you just try to sell him on the fact that we're going for the title. Stay here. We're going to do this. You're still going to be an important part of this team. And then if he's unhappy because he's not playing enough because we're moving forward with Ramsey and he becomes more of a squad player, it's great to have Santi in the squad. I mean, that's the kind of depth that you have to win titles. And if we're lucky enough to still be in the title race come January, he won't be that unhappy about playing time because he'll be getting minutes and we'll be in the middle of the title race.
I agree. I mean, I would say this, and I know this is the ultimate cynical viewpoint, Joaquin. Like, there's a part of me that worries that Wenger wants Ramsey to play.
Sure.
He wants Wilshere to play. He wants Oxlade-Chamberlain to play. He knows he has to find time for Welbeck to play. And he may want to get one more player in who can score goals. And if Cazorla says, I'd really like to go back to Spain, Arsene might just maybe, take a deep breath and say, you know what? If I let Santi go back to Spain, I can put Ramsey in that role next to Coughlin. I can then start Ox on the right or Jack on the right or Welbeck on the right. It fixes a little bit of a selection headache for me, and it gives Cazorla what he wants. Now, I hope he's not thinking that way because he should be as selfish as possible and hoard all the talent he can. But
we know him too well.
We know, that's not how he operates.
The future of the players, and he takes a lot into consideration.
And look, Ramsey has said he wants to play centrally, that he's playing on the wing to help the team, but it's not where he wants to be. It solves a little bit of a problem for the manager. If he gets $15 million or $12 million for Cazorla in the summer, and
I think the key thing is that he's replaced.
Well, of course, but I mean, what I think would happen instead is he sells Cazorla, he moves Ramsey back to that position with Wilshere as the backup to that, and then he brings in a big player to play on the right side of the attack. Maybe not Royce. Maybe, I mean, what about like a Paulo Dybala? He's a striker, right?
Yeah, he's a striker, and there's a bunch of talks about that being nearly done.
But you see my point, right, Joaquin? Like if he sells Cazorla, he solves but he makes his Ramsey, Wilshere, Oxlade-Chamberlain situation a little easier. And then he also has room to bring in a right side player. Because let me ask you this. Let's say he doesn't sell Cazorla, okay?
Okay.
And let's say he buys a forward, a goal-scoring forward.
Sure.
Okay. Now what the fuck does he do? Now he has no room for Welbeck, no room for Wilshere, no room for Oxlade-Chamberlain, and potentially no room for Aaron Ramsey, who arguably in any given game is our best player. So, like, I mean, the only argument I see for him keeping Cazorla in that scenario is he doesn't buy anyone for the front line. And then my question to you would be, how do we expect to do any better next season using the same players who could only take us so far this season?
Well, I mean, I think with some of the players that we have, we're looking for them to make a leap and make a step.
Yeah, of course.
And that's really where a lot of it lies. Yeah.
Promote from within.
A lot of yeah, Joseph would be touting and waving his flag right now if he could do it. That's what we're likely to see, and that's what Wenger kind of counts on in a lot of these situations. We know he's going to make a buy or two in one position or another, right? Look, I understand. I understand if Santi goes, I'm not gonna be bitter about it. I'll understand it and be like, look,
it'll be a huge loss.
It's a huge loss, and the reason I say that is just like we need to have that depth to deal with the inevitable injuries that are going to happen over the course of next season. You have to get kind of lucky with it, and you have to have the depth to deal with it, and everything has to work out. The fucking planets have to be aligned for us to make this. He would
be a huge loss. I want to not retract, but take one step back. My worry is that people will hear that prior rant I just went on and think it means that I believe Santi should be sold. I think Santi is crucial to how the side is operating. I'm just saying that if Santi wants to go back to Spain, I could see Arsene Wenger blessing it because it solves a little bit of a headache.
It makes sense. It makes sense. There's a lot of reasons why it makes sense. We don't need to want to see it, but we it's not bad if we understand why it would happen. Right. And look, and I think for me, the trade-off would be, look, I would hate to see Santi go, but especially if it meant we're going to bring in a top talent, whether it be a striker or a wide forward, then I'll get over it.
If we're going to buy Marco Royce, we're going to sell somebody.
Of course.
It's not going to be just Podolski or Joel Campbell. No. Those guys are gone anyway.
So how do you feel about like Cavani?
I got to be honest. Like, I'm totally off the Cavani train right now. I'm just not.
You were with it before, right?
I was riding that train hard all night long. Cavani was a highway.
Would you be disappointed if that was something that happened?
No, I don't think you'd ever be disappointed, showing that kind of ambition. And if Arsene Wenger sees in him the player he was at, where was it, Udinese?
No, Napoli.
Napoli. That's right. Sorry. Who was at Udinese who got a big move?
Fucking Alexis Sanchez.
Alexis Sanchez. Yeah, I'm an idiot. I knew it was someone who was relevant to Arsenal. I think if Arsene Wenger still sees that player in him, then absolutely I'd be on board with it. It'd be interesting though, because obviously he's another guy who's going to be tied up with Copa America, and would come into the squad late and not have a preseason, and that'd be my one worry is, I'd love, we quite clearly need to hit the ground running.
The interesting thing with him is the fact that he said straight up that like, we have this dynamic with him because he basically has said he wants to play as a center forward at PSG or he wants out.
Right.
Feasibly he could come in and become the number 9 at Arsenal. But you could also potentially use him out wide along with Giroud in this sense, although that doesn't seem to particularly make him happy.
I don't see him being used that way. I mean, you mean play him on the right opposite Alexis or on the left with Alexis on the right?
It's kind of like a floating.
I mean, granted, you could do that in some games and play him at the 9 other games, but he makes an absolute assload of money a week.
Sure.
PSG, I mean, I guess every club says this, but they say they're not selling. And I think if you're PSG at some point, you have to start examining what the future for Ibrahimovic is before you even start looking at losing Cavani. PSG might say to Cavani, hey, you know what? Your time to be center forward at PSG is coming. Ibrahimovic's time is going.
But unless it happens this summer.
Maybe it will. I mean, maybe this
it will.
Maybe this is the last season.
Comes to LA.
I'm going to tell you something. It wouldn't shock me if Cavani stayed in Paris and Ibrahimovic went, especially after his rant about France and the league. I mean, it's been a frustrating season.
The owner's made his wishes public about him wanting to stay.
Yeah.
Wanting to stay. I mean, we'll see. But it's just interesting because for them, like we said, for PSG is a club that wants to make a splash every year, it seems right now, with the money and what they have going on. But FFP's got them a bit hamstrung, right? I mean, that's the reason why they've said that's the reason why they didn't get Angel Di Maria.
Well, it certainly doesn't help when you spend £50 million on David Luiz.
It certainly doesn't. But so I think there's a decent chance that there could be some way that they work out a way to get Angel Di Maria there this summer.
Well, he's not staying at United.
It doesn't look like it.
No.
What a fucking flop.
Yeah, I'm inclined. Look, with Falcao, I'm inclined to say he's just a flop because he's done. He's washed up.
Yeah,
the knee issue was it, and he's too old and he's past it. With Di Maria, I'm inclined to say it's more United's fault than Di Maria's fault.
Agreed, but I mean, like,
you don't go from lighting up the Champions League at Real Madrid to win La Decima to being horse shit at United. I mean, I am personally a huge fan of Louis van Gaal because I think as long as he's at United, they won't win shit.
Agreed.
I think he is an absolute mad scientist. I think his days are beyond him. He is too old for the job. His style is outdated. I think he's a mess.
He's a dinosaur.
I wouldn't be surprised if United fall out of the top 4 next season if they stay with him.
Interesting. I will not go that bold. I love bold statements.
They're a mess. I mean, Falcao is done. Van Persie is done. Di Maria is gone. Fellaini is not the answer.
He's got a holy mess. He's got a
Shaw is a waste.
Good deal.
Yeah, Marcos Rojo is a waste. Like they're gonna have to spend another £150 million this summer to legitimately. Now, if they get Bale and they bought Depay, and if they can get a Michael Carrick replacement, then they'd be right up there again. But They probably need a striker.
Yeah.
They
do. They didn't get the one they were looking for.
No, they can't persist with Valencia and Ashley Young. Their defending is abysmal. I mean, everything about the back four, back three has to be changed, and they're going to lose De Gea. So, it's a mess over there.
Well, while we're on the topic of them, I mean, let's start talking about this match because we are facing them at Old Trafford this weekend.
We're going to pound the shit out of them this weekend.
I fucking hope so.
Yeah. It's coming.
Overdue.
It's been coming. They're overdue, and I'm going to tell you something. I mean, they're bad. I've been watching them play a lot, and they don't look good. They had a little bit of a rebirth there, but it was based a lot around, Herrera and Carrick and lumping it to Fellaini. They don't have Carrick anymore, which totally changes their ability to control the middle of the pitch. They have no ability to control midfield against us if we approach this with any intelligence whatsoever. I think Fellaini is a player who gives us trouble, but I have no idea, what they're going to do, with their front line. Ultimately, they look ripe for a heavy defeat. The only thing you worry about is De Gea can keep them in a match.
Sure.
And
we have to finish better than we did.
Well, they struggle. We struggle with Fellaini too. I mean, we've always struggled to handle Fellaini, and so that would be my one concern because Ashley Young and Antonio Valencia don't scare anyone right now, unless they just come out with tremendous intensity and they let that carry them through. We are the better football team right now, playing the better football. And we can moan about the Swansea game, but in reality, it's a bit of an aberration. At least in the second half, we dominated them. And I mean, I watched the United game where they had 70% possession against West Brom. They did nothing with it. They were not very good.
Yeah, there was no.
We didn't do much in the first half against Swansea, but the second half, I thought we were actually pretty bright. The big question for the manager is, I think Welbeck is going to be fit and ready to come back in. I wonder if he'll try, worked so well the first time, if he'll try to do the Welbeck at Old Trafford thing again and give Giroud the day off. It'll be interesting to see.
I don't think so. I don't think so this week. I mean, that's just my hunch.
Chance he does.
Basis. I just don't think it wouldn't surprise me if he played, but I just don't know who. It would make sense to play him on the right.
This is a team you want pace against. You can get behind their back four and give them all kinds of problems.
So then who do you sit? Santi or Ramsey?
I'd sit Giroud and play Welbeck.
Okay, but if you couldn't do that, if you were doing Giroud up top and Welbeck on the right,
then you have to either sit Cazorla or Ramsey.
Right. So which one? If you had to do it that way, which one would it be?
I might, and I know I'm going to get crucified for this, but I might play Cazorla and Ramsey and drop Coughlin. Here's my theory. Just hear me out real quick. And Naveen on Twitter, he's a great follow if you like tactics. And I admit I don't know tactics as well as he does. But Francis Coughlin, for all the things he does well, really prevents us from building up in the midfield the way we want. He does not have the passing ability. He's not as good on the ball. He doesn't show for his teammates as intelligently. I think we can dominate midfield in a very, very dramatic way without Carrick in there.
Yeah, I was going to say without Carrick, I don't know. Yeah. And it's a crapshoot of which Fellaini's going to show up.
But he's not. I mean, Fellaini's not a possession-oriented player.
No.
And Herrera will be in midfield, but he'll have to play deeper, which takes him out of really the zone where he's most effective. I think if you have Ramsey and Cazorla and Ozil in the middle of the park, they'll dance circles around Fellaini, Herrera, and I mean, who would even be their third in there?
That wouldn't be the most surprising, just because it seems to be like when we're chasing a game, that's what our tactic is, right? Our go-to lately has been, okay, we're going to bring Wilshere on, or we're going to bring someone else on the wing. What we do is we pull off Coquelin, drop Ramsey into hold because like at that point against the Swansea match.
Yeah, nominally holding, right? Because you don't. Right. Now, just to clarify, I don't think the manager will do that, and I'm not sure that'd be the smartest thing. I mean, it is still Old Trafford. You're still playing away at a place where you can get really beat up. So I think he will start with Coughlin, and I think if you're starting with Coughlin, you have to play Ramsey on the right. you need those 3 players in the middle of the pitch who can control possession, and that's not what Alexis Sanchez does. I mean, so Ramsey needs to be able to come inside and make a 3 with Ozil and Cazorla and really create some midfield control. I think his only decision, honestly, will be to bring Welbeck in for Giroud or stay unchanged. And I have a weird sneaking suspicion he might decide to go Welbeck for Giroud. But other than that, I don't think he'll change it. I think it will be the same lineup we've seen. He started the same team 5 in a row, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him do it 6 in a row.
Yeah, I don't think it would surprise anyone.
The only change I could see him making is straight swap Welbeck for Giroud.
How about what about a Chesney for Ospina?
Oof. I mean, if it was any other backup keeper, I'd actually say there's a possibility. But like, Chesney is about as much of an option in goal as you or I am. So you and I
come on,
are.
let's not get a little too carried away.
No, I mean, I don't think Chesney will play the FA Cup final either. Like, I think he's done.
Now, what makes you think that? Like, after we saw the way the pattern unfolded last season, if it follows a script, which it has so far, Chesney will start the cup final.
I think the manager wanted Fabianski to stay at Arsenal.
Sure,
but I also think the
manager
manager
was number 1. He rated Chesney higher.
Well, I think he preferred Fabianski to Chesney, but that ship had sailed. He wouldn't renew, and he knew he was off. I mean, I don't think the manager wants Chesney anywhere near the club anymore. I think he'll go in the summer. And I think that the falling out has been so severe that the manager will not risk playing Chesney again. I really don't.
Then why play him in the FA Cup semifinal?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is an excellent question. Maybe, honestly, as silly as it sounds, to avoid disrupting a squad that was in a good moment. I think, you don't need Chesney sounding off and causing a disruption. He probably figured we can beat Reading with you or me in goal. And I think he opted for Chesney for the sake of tranquility at the club.
All right, I'll make a wager with you for the FA Cup. And the time that we finally go out and get some beers or something, the first round or the first night of drinks is on the loser.
Yep.
This bet. I'm saying Chesney will play in the cup final.
Okay. Well, let me say this. If Ospina drops a couple clangers along the way, I think that could happen. But
this is a bet right now.
Let me say this. Assuming nothing dramatic happens where Ospina is terrible.
No, you just
you got to give me this.
Take the bet right now.
Give me this. I will take that bet, but I want a right of rescission if Ospina does something horrendous between now and the end of the regular season. In other words, no, listen. The only way I'm rescinding the bet is if he has a horrific game that costs, throws the ball in his own net or goes walkabout or something terrible. Apart from that,
I'm just asking you to be bold and
all right, fine. I'll take the bet. Chesney's out. He's out. He's not playing again.
Done. All right. Oh, not playing again. We should just make that bet. Well, maybe he plays the last Premier League game of the season.
All right, sorry. He's not playing the cup final, and he's leaving this summer.
Okay. All right. Done.
That's
Deal.
It. And we will go for a keeper in the summer.
Yeah, I think so. And, it's smart. The stories coming out today about Czech being in talks with Besiktas and stuff make a lot more sense. Jose was never going to give us a keeper that would.
I never believed that Jose would let us get Czech. I did think that maybe this was a case where Czech was bigger than Jose and that Abramovich would feel he owed him the right to go where he wanted to go. But I don't think there's any honor among thieves over there. So
no, not at all. They're not. They don't really stand for those types of values.
Yep.
So, as tradition here on the Pintcast, give me a prediction for the score at Old Trafford.
I'll say 3-1 Arsenal.
3-1 up the arse.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot.
I like it a lot. It's my birthday on Sunday.
Oh, shit.
Last year on my birthday, we won the FA Cup final. This year on my birthday, we will win at Old Trafford.
Damn fucking
for the second time this season.
Second time in the season. Second time in 2015.
It is an important game because – go ahead.
We could win at Old Trafford 3 times this season if we handle this and then do it in the first half of next season because it'll be –
You mean 3 times this year, yeah.
Sorry, this year.
Yeah. Well, and I will say this. It is an important game in the sense that I don't know that finishing second or third really matters. Like, would it be nice to finish second? Yeah.
Beating United does, though.
Well, no, here's what I was going to say yes, but not finishing fourth is important.
Yes.
Avoiding that qualifier, I think, is enough incentive to go into this game and want to beat them.
Right, and a draw would probably be enough for us in that sense.
Yeah, but let's go beat the Pistons.
But fuck that. I mean, look, they've been ripe for the picking. We handled in the FA Cup. Let's go up there and get a fucking win over this trash piece of shit United States. So let's do it.
Cheers.
Indeed. All right, well, you can follow us, Fine Fellow, on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. Do it.
Do it. Or block me. That's fine too.
Or block them. You know, whatever fits. Whatever fits. I'll fully support it either way.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Joaquin.
Yeah, man, it's always great chatting with you. Check out the Arsenal Vision podcast. Subscribe to it on iTunes. It is a good listen.
Thank you.
Make it happen. And this week we're actually going to close out with a song dedicated to the special one. A special song for a special person. So check it out. Enjoy. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.